One thing I love is a good deer story, and we have that for you this week from our friends in northern Missouri. Tyler and Justin and Mitch. Historically, these guys have done such a good job for us, bringing us quality content, quality stories. And unfortunately, this one doesn't have the greatest ending, but we're going to let Justin tell us the story of Big Chief. And following that, we're going to share some footage from our recent trip to Nebraska.
Well guys, this isn't exactly how we was wanting to bring the story of a deer we call Big Chief to an ending, but unfortunately sometimes as a bow hunter, Mother Nature has other things on its mind. This story all starts back in 2017 and 18 as we had a really nice 3 and 4 year old deer, his mainframe 8-pointer with a split off its G2. And growing up, to get extra money for deer hunting, I used to split a lot of firewood, and I had a wood splitter by the name of Big Chief, and I was like, well, one more than that, we're going to name this deer Big Chief, the big split off the G2. So that's where the name come from on the deer. But the story really started getting interesting with the deer back in 2019 when the deer was a 5-year-old. But coming into the season, we had our minds on another deer that we called Wishbone, and I was kind of dead set that that's all the deer that I was going to harvest. So once again, Big Chief was kind of low and lay on the radar, and I hadn't hunted all year. We had a cold front move through on October the 3rd, and I told Tyler Mitch, I'm going to make my debut on the west side of the farm where Wishbone generally shows up. And lo and behold, on October the 4th, a buck we called DT stepped out into the field, and I told Mitch when it stepped into the field I wasn't harvesting, because I was dead set on Wishbone. And the quality of a deer DT was, he was a 6.5-year-old 10. I knew there was no way I could pass him. So I was fortunate to harvest that deer that night. And the next day we checked the cameras, and Wishbone had showed up on September the 27th. And now all eyes are set on him for Tyler to target him. And Big Chief was still on the east side of the farm like he was as a 3 and a 4-year-old. But we just wasn't paying no attention to him. And he was rolling all along, and Tyler was fortunate enough to tag that Wishbone buck, I believe, in the early part of November. So we were tagged out, rifle season rolls through, and Big Chief was still showing up on cameras on the east side. He made it through rifle season. But the thing is with this deer on the east side, we don't have any food back there, so it was really hard to target him late season. So he made it through late season. We're coming into the 2020 season. The deer's a 6-year-old, and my eyes are all set on this deer, kind of like the year before on Wishbone. And he shows up, I believe, in the early part of October like he typically does. There we are, we're gearing up. It's, going to be just like he was when he was 5. He was all over the place on the east side. Time's going on through, no pictures of him, but I'm decided I'm going to make my debut of morning hunting on October the 31st on the east side, where we'd been getting pictures of him all the time. We go in there, and the first one of the 2 deer we see is, as we were getting set up, we were scrambling, was a Big Chief on the hot doe. He'd come from the west side, and it was pretty thick in there, and I wasn't able to get no shot at him, but it didn't matter to me at the time, because as much time as he was in there as a 5-year-old, I knew that it was just a matter of time before I'd run into him. So he fed off. I couldn't hunt November the 1st. We go back in there November the 2nd, and it was a calm, crisp morning, and sure enough, the first deer we see that morning was Big Chief as he come from the east side, and he caught us off guard. He was already in bow range when we got on him, and I think he caught movement of me and Mitch getting ready. And this is where I really learned something. Like I said, he caught me off guard, and he stopped. He was alert. I was able to get an arrow off, but he ducked and took a half step, and I hit him high in the back, and I'm pretty sure I got nothing but back fat. But this right here is kind of a thing that I learned from the whole thing. As a bow hunter, I always tell myself in a moment of truth, relax, think, concentrate. Always run these initials through my head, RTC, because that's just, as any bow hunter, when it gets into that, you just rush a shot of everything and you don't ever think about nothing. But it happened so fast, I didn't even, run it through my mind. But so that goes through. I'm going to give it time to cool down, being as I just shot him. Go back in there November the 8th, third time in this timber, and I have another encounter with him, I believe around 8-ish or so. He come in the downwind side of us, and he knew something wasn't right, and he turned around and kind of fed off and kind of calmed back down. So I knew it wasn't boogered up too much. We get back in there November the 10th, and this is probably one of the coolest mornings that I've ever had in the timber, as Mitch gets my attention. I believe it's around 8:30, and tells me it's a Big Chief. He's coming around the back side of the ridge, and he's with the hot doe, and they're feeding right toward us. And like I said, I've never got to witness something like this in the wild before, as he bred a doe. And I'm getting ready to count my chickens before they're hatched here, as the doe crosses the ravine, and I'm about to take a shot at him once he crosses the ravine, but for whatever reason, she decides to turn and go straight away from me, and he follows her and out of sight again. He slips away from me, and at this time, I'm like, this deer, I cannot win with this thing. So I believe it was rifle season, November the 15th. It was an extremely windy night, and I wasn't expecting to see much. And lo and behold, he fed out of that same timber where we've been having all these encounters with a doe, and just never really presented me a shot that evening. Fed off back into the timber, and it just gets tough on that side of the farm that we don't have any food to hunt him late season. And so he was still showing up on camera there. Just wasn't fortunate to have any run-ins with him. Coming into the shed season, me and Tyler, we were dead set. We were wanting to find a shed to this guy. We hadn't found any of them to him in the years past. And lo and behold, I would believe it was someday in March, and me and Tyler was on the east side there. And I found his left side here, and it's one of the biggest sheds that I've ever found. But that was just another winning moment to the deer, that we finally got to find a shed to him. Coming into the 2021 season, we knew that we had to make a change on the farm. We knew we had to get food on the east side, just so if he made it through season, that we would have an opportunity to maybe pattern a deer late season. And lucky enough, my Uncle Roy and Tyler's dad let us plant 1.5 acres of beans on the east side, and we knew that was going to be the game changer right there. So coming in the season, once again, it's the only deer I really want to target. And so I'm waiting and waiting, hoping that he's going to show up early part of October. And he's not showing up. The fear in our minds is starting to set in, as we had a bad outbreak of VHD earlier in the year, where we knew we had lost some other deer that stopped showing up on camera. We're going on through October, still no pictures of him. I told Tyler and Mitch that I was going to give it till November 1st before I was going to start targeting another deer we called Crab King if he didn't show up. November 1st comes and goes, still nothing of him. November the 5th, I had an encounter with a buck we called Crab King in that same timber. And I knew I had to get back in there that evening to hunt a food plot just to the west of that timber where I had that encounter with Crab King. I was going to be self-filming that evening, but I was in a redneck, wasn't too worried about it. The evening started off pretty good, as I had some does feed into the wheat plot there. And I'll never forget it. I look over to my right, and it's Big Chief stepping into the field, and I was just shocked that it was him. But the wind was marginal that night, and I had the window shut on the redneck, so I got the window open without the does spotting me. And I just, like I said, it was just a matter of time before he comes up there. But I think the deer, he may have gotten my wind, and he fed straight off. And once again, he slipped out of sight on me. But I could tell that night that there was something wasn't right with him. He had some scars on his front knees, and he just seemed like he was kind of bony looking or something. He just didn't look right. He was walking kind of just limping a little bit. And but back again, all eyes set on Big Chief. This is the only deer again that I'm going for after that. And still nothing, no pictures of him again. all the way through season, we kind of just wrote him off. Maybe someone shot him with a rifle or something. And then it was this shed season. Me and Tyler was out, and we get the phone call that any bow hunter or any deer hunter hates to get. And it's the neighbor called and said they were pretty sure that they had found Big Chief dead. So I think it went 5-10 minutes, and I told Tyler, I said, man, we ought to call him up and see if he'd be willing to, maybe just sell the deer to me, if he didn't know the deer, because he acted like he had never even seen the deer before. And sure enough, give him a call, and Tony's like, man, I can't take no money from you guys. You all sound like you all got all the history with him and everything and all the encounters. And he said, I'll just give the deer to you. And I'm like shell-shocked at the time that he was willing to do that. But it was just immediately, me and Tyler's like, well, can we come now? We wanted to, get our hands on him, see what he actually looked like for the first time ever. And so we made quick work of that, went down to his house, met Tony, and we laid our eyes on it and just was speechless to actually get my hands on him for the first time. And just could tell too, with after getting our hands on him, something wasn't right with him this year. He may have gotten EHD and he survived because he really didn't rub much. His bases and stuff are extremely sharp still, and the deer hasn't been dead that long. I believe he died after season ends here in Missouri after January 15th with all the amount of meat and hair still on it. But I couldn't thank Tony enough for doing that, and hopefully someday that we can return the favor back to him. But it's just one thing to take away from this whole deal in bow hunting generally is most deer hunters, in the moment of truth, they do not step back and think about it. Slow things down. That's the only thing I can say to do, and that's just one thing that I would like to, give a little bit of advice on, is just to slow that moment down in the moment of truth. So I want to thank you all for watching, and look forward to the 2022 season.
Is he coming up?
I can't tell.
Bunch of toms.
Yeah.
You see him pretty good.
Yeah. No, not really. I'm trying to throw a call out.
That's where they all went up. The snow's off. That's where they went up last night. It's the whole fan. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. Well, as you saw, another good first morning here in Nebraska. We didn't get in till probably 11 o'clock last night, so we didn't have time to scout or
roost any birds. We just came to what's been historically a good spot. And the birds were in here. We were close to them on the roost, but they like to hang out in this tiny little ridge, and they wouldn't come up to us. So being the impatient turkey hunter that I am, we made the move, slid all the way down basically a cliff into the bottom, got in front of these birds and snuck back up. But pretty awesome. I can't believe it actually worked out. It's always a fun challenge chasing these things without a blind and bows in hand. But we're, like I said, right at the beginning of our trip between Spencer and Grant. Hopefully you can knock down a couple more. Definitely enough birds in here to do it, so looking forward to the rest of the trip.
Grant, that's why we did quick draw at the techno hunt.
That's way more fun than that.
Well, it's been one of those days out here in Nebraska. We've been hitting it hard and we just thought it was not going to come back to us, but we actually got permission on this place. Did a little bit of scouting, drove around. It's a new piece for us. But when we first came through here, we saw the birds just right over the hill from where I'm at right now. And they started off by coming right past this cattle trough. And we knew that that was something that as the day came to an end, that was somewhere where we were gonna target. So sure enough, we spent most of the day trying to get on them, left, went and got a quick bite to eat and came back. And they were starting to work across the cornfield already. So we just hightailed it up here to that cattle trough, got set up as quick as we can. The thought was get Grant on one, and then I'd be a backup shot, or if another time presented himself, you know, maybe try to double down on that. But didn't work out for Grant between the cattle trough, and then most of them stayed out and away from him. So Gavin and I made a quick decision. Jared said just sneak up behind this kind of a crossing for the farmer potentially. Snuck up across that, and it was hen after hen after hen and Jake's, and finally this guy finally showed himself, made a quick shot, 30, 35 yards, and let the whirlwind begin. The footage will tell itself, but we were able to track him down. Had to get another arrow in him, unfortunately, but he wasn't going very far after that first arrow. So just an amazing, amazing hunt. What a beautiful day, beautiful scenery, beautiful bird. So perfect way to kind of cap off the day here after a long, hard day of hunting.
All right, it's April 2nd, day 3 in Nebraska. And as you can probably hear in the background, we're watching a bunch of turkeys fly out of a tree right now. We came in here early and set up in this bottom. We already have everything set up. We roosted them last night, but to see them out of the tree, we had to come up this ridge. And we just want to see what side they pitch down on. We set up where we think that they're going to end up. And they're flying out of the tree right now to the left. This is what we want them to do, so as soon as a few more fly out of the tree, we'll probably head down that way and get set up. All right, guys, well, day 3 here in Nebraska, and I finally got it done. Came in here and roosted them last night, and they ended up roosting on a different property. But we knew just with the sign that's on this property that they spend the majority of their time in this area. So we made a setup this morning, and as you guys could see, it was just an unreal hunt. I mean, seeing all those birds up in that tree on the roost, pitched down, definitely a sight to be seen. So definitely one of the most fun turkey hunts I've ever been on, and Nebraska is just an awesome place. This is the first time I've ever been out here, and just beautiful country, beautiful turkeys, spend time with some great friends, and I couldn't be more thankful.
Once again, Nebraska was such a good time. It's become an annual tradition that we look forward to, and it's just good for the soul. We've had such a long break between actual hunts since the deer season ended that it's just good to get back out there and chase something, especially with the bow. And kind of watching that highlight, I'm sure it is just that, it's a highlight. You get to see kind of the best of the best, but man, it's such a fun challenge out there, especially this time of year. Those birds are so flocked up. I mean, you see the amount of birds we're seeing in a flock, and we're not making it easy on ourselves by 1, using bows, and 2, no blinds or anything. So one thing that we didn't really talk about, but these birds usually aren't callable when they're in that big of a flock. It's just hard to get anything to break off and come to calls. And 2, other than Grant's hunt, we rarely see them come into decoys. I mean, we take decoys on some hunts, other times we don't. But all those things, it kind of turns into a spot and stock hunt for turkeys. And when you have 50, 60 birds in a flock, man, that's a ton of eyeballs looking at you. So needless to say, we fail way more than we succeed out there in Nebraska, but that's kind of what keeps us coming back every single year. So it's a good time, always good people out there. This year we spent some time on public land, we spent some time on old properties, we spent some time on new properties. We kind of bounced around a lot till we found some birds that we could hunt, and I'm looking forward to the next trip out there for sure. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We're just turkey hunters wanting to have fun, but if you want to watch some guys that are really good at turkey hunting, you may have noticed we started posting a couple of Chasing Red videos, and Chasing Red's a new turkey series, dedicated turkey series that we're producing this spring. Andy Melton, David Williams, Chad Holmes, and then last but not least, Max. He's on the road pretty much the entire spring producing this series, filming and editing. He'll do some hunting, of course, himself, but it's going to be really fun following Max and whoever he's with throughout the spring. So we'll be posting them here on the channel, but go follow those guys as well if you want to kind of get the more daily action from them. I know I'm excited to watch how their spring unfolds, and we appreciate you guys joining. So have a great week. We'll see you soon.